I stood on my parents' porch, my hand shaking as I held the envelope. The handwriting was my mother's, sharp, precise strokes I'd known my entire life. Inside, a single page. You are no longer our daughter. You chose him over your heritage. Don't contact us again. Both signatures sat at the bottom like tombstones. My wedding ring caught the morning sun as tears blurred the words. 26 years of being their daughter, erased in 3 sentences. My husband Marcus waited in the car, watching me crumble. I folded the letter, tucked it into my pocket, and walked away from the only home I'd ever known. The porch where I'd learned to ride a bike. The door I'd rushed through every day after school. All of it, gone in few seconds. My father had warned me 3 months ago when I announced my engagement. Marry him and you're dead to us, Amara. I thought he was bluffing. He wasn't. I thought he would still come around to understand. He didn't. The weeks after felt like drowning in silence. I called my mother 17 times a day, and even more at times. Every call went straight to voicemail. I texted my father, begging him to reconsider. He blocked my number within hours. My younger sister Keisha sent one message. I'm sorry, but I can't choose sides. She stopped responding after that. Even my aunts and uncles turned cold, their group chat suddenly quiet whenever I posted. Marcus held me every night as I sobbed into his chest, whispering that we'd build our own family. But the rejection carved something hollow inside me. I stopped eating properly. Stopped sleeping through the night. Sleep became my enemy for as long as I tried to sleep. Every holiday reminder felt like a punch. My mother always made her famous coconut rice during celebrations. Now I'd never taste it again. One evening, I found myself scrolling through old family photos on my phone. Birthday parties. Graduations. Sunday dinners. I was in every picture, smiling, loved. Such were the moments of family together. Now I was invisible. That night, I made myself a promise. I would never beg for their love again. Christmas arrived like a cruel reminder. Marcus and I sat in our tiny apartment, a small tree in the corner with 5 ornaments we'd bought at a discount store. My mother used to decorate with gold ribbons and hand-carved angels from her homeland. I tried to recreate it, but everything felt wrong. The scent of pine couldn't replace the warmth of family voices. I pulled out my phone and opened the family group chat I'd been removed from. Someone had posted a photo of everyone gathered around the dinner table. My seat was gone. They'd rearranged the chairs like I'd never existed. Marcus found me crying in the bathroom an hour later. We'll make new traditions, he promised. But I couldn't shake the image of that empty space where I should have been. That night, I deleted every family photo from my phone. If they could erase me, I could erase them. I wouldn't keep torturing myself with memories of people who chose pride over love. My promise never to beg for their love resurfaced. I re-echoed it to be sure I would follow through. January brought a small miracle disguised as a stranger. I was at the grocery store counting coins for bread and milk. Our savings were almost gone, and Marcus's construction job barely covered rent. An older woman in line behind me noticed my struggle. She had warm eyes and silver hair pulled into a neat bun. Without a word, she reached forward and handed the cashier a $20 bill. For her, she said simply. I tried to refuse, but she pressed the change into my palm. Start where you are, sweetheart. Better days are coming. I thanked her, voice breaking. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and cried again, but this time it felt different. Lighter. That evening, I found a brochure for a local business course at the community center. 6 weeks, 2 evenings per week, $50 total. I looked at the money the stranger had given me. $15 remained after groceries. It felt like a sign. I registered the next morning. I began to feel the life inside of me once more. The business course became my lifeline. While Marcus worked 12-hour days on construction sites, I absorbed everything. Profit margins, marketing basics, customer retention strategies. Our instructor, Mr. Phillips, a retired entrepreneur, saw something in me. You've got fire in your eyes, he said after class one night. Don't let it burn you. Channel it. I stayed up late studying, building mock business plans on my laptop. Marcus would come home exhausted, covered in dust, and find me hunched over spreadsheets. He never complained. Instead, he'd sketch logo ideas on napkins while eating leftover pasta. We called our imaginary company Marrow, because we were building something from the broken bones of what used to be. The name felt right. Strong. Resilient. By the end of February, I'd completed the course with top marks. Mr. Phillips pulled me aside on the last day. You're going to build something real, Amara. I can feel it. I wanted to believe him. But belief required money we didn't have. It looked real in words, but abstract in reality. Spring arrived with devastating news. I'd been feeling off for weeks, tired and nauseous. When the pregnancy test showed positive, Marcus and I cried with joy. A new beginning. A family that would never abandon us. But 3 weeks later, sharp pains sent me to the emergency room. Miscarriage. The doctor's words felt distant, clinical. Marcus held my hand as I stared at the ceiling, empty. We drove home in silence. That night, I waited for my mother's call. Surely someone had told her. Surely this would break through the wall. My phone stayed silent. No text. No card. No acknowledgement that her daughter had just lost a grandchild she'd never meet. The grief nearly swallowed me whole. But somewhere in the darkness, something else grew. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind. The cold, calculating kind. The kind that builds empires. If they could ignore my pain, I'd transform it into power. I'd rise so high they'd have no choice but to see me. By summer, Marcus and I launched Marrow with $300 and a dream. The money was too small, but the dream was big enough and made it real to start. We started small, offering meal prep services for busy families. I'd learned to cook by watching online videos, teaching myself recipes from different cultures. Marcus handled deliveries after his construction shifts. We worked 18-hour days, barely breaking even. But slowly word spread. A local food blogger wrote about us. Marrow, where every meal tells a story. Orders doubled, then tripled. I hired 2 part-time helpers. We moved operations from our apartment kitchen to a rented commercial space. 6 months after launching, we landed our first real contract. A corporate client wanting weekly catering for their office. I stayed awake all night preparing 75 meals, my hands cramping from chopping vegetables. When the client called the next day, I braced for complaints. Instead, they said, "Your food has heart. We want to extend the contract." I hung up and cried. Marcus found me sobbing over the stove. "Happy tears?" he asked. I nodded. These were mine. Earned. Real. For the first time, happiness became life in me again. 2 years into building Marrow, I saw my father on the evening news. I was folding laundry when his face appeared on the television. He looked older, grayer. The interview was about his importing business, Sterling and Sons, struggling with new regulations. The reporter asked about his philosophy. "Family legacy is everything," he said, voice firm. "You build for blood, not strangers." I grabbed the remote to change the channel, but something made me stop. Marcus appeared in the doorway, concern crossing his face. "You don't need to watch this." But I did. I needed to see the man who chose tradition over his daughter. My father's eyes looked hollow on screen, mechanical. He spoke about honor and heritage, but I heard something else underneath. Fear. Fear that his way of living was dying. "You taught me about business," I whispered to the screen. "But you forgot to teach me compassion." Marcus switched off the television and pulled me close. "His loss," he murmured. I nodded. "Absolutely his loss. My gains," he said with a soft smile. Marrow exploded in year 3. We expanded from meal prep to a full catering company, then added a line of packaged sauces and spices. A food magazine featured us in their Rising Stars issue. My face appeared on the cover, holding a jar of our signature spice blend. "Building flavor, building legacy," the headline read. This was the moment I had never thought I would have. Marcus held my hand all through the journey. We moved into a real office with a commercial kitchen. I hired 15 full-time employees. Marcus quit construction to manage operations. Revenue hit 6 figures. 7 figures. The numbers felt unreal. Local news stations called for interviews. I spoke about our mission. Food that brings people together, regardless of where they come from. Reporters loved the story, though I never mentioned my parents. That pain stayed private. That was a story I never wanted to make public. During one interview, the journalist asked, "What drives you?" I paused, choosing my words carefully. "I want to prove that family isn't just blood. It's who shows up." The clip played on the evening news. I wondered if my parents saw it. Part of me hoped they did. Part of me hoped they didn't. Either or not they did, it doesn't matter. The wedding invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning. My cousin Zara was getting married. I hadn't spoken to her in 3 years, not since the disownment. The cream envelope felt heavy in my hands. Marcus watched me debate opening it. "You don't have to go," he said gently. But curiosity won. Inside, elegant script announced the ceremony. No personal note. No acknowledgement of the years of silence. Just a formal invitation like I was any distant relative. I almost threw it away. Then I thought about walking in successful, confident, transformed, showing them exactly what they'd lost. I'm going, I told Marcus. He raised an eyebrow. You sure? I nodded. I need to face them eventually. Might as well be on my terms. The day of the wedding, I wore a deep blue dress that cost more than my first month's rent had. Marcus looked sharp in his suit. As we pulled up to the venue, my hands trembled. I gripped Marcus's palm. Ready? He asked. I took a breath. Let's show them who I became. The reception hall buzzed with familiar faces. Aunts, uncles, cousins I'd grown up with. The moment I walked in, conversations stopped. Eyes tracked me across the room. I held my head high, Marcus's hand steady in mine. My mother stood near the gift table, her face draining of color when she saw me. She whispered something to my aunt, who glanced over sharply. I walked straight toward them, my heart hammering. Hello, Mother, I said, voice calm. She clutched her purse. You shouldn't be here, Amara. The words stung, but I'd prepared for this. Zara invited me. I came to celebrate family. I emphasized the last word. My father appeared from the crowd, his jaw tight. He looked at Marcus, then at me, and turned away without speaking. For years, I'd imagined this confrontation. Screaming. Accusations. Instead, it was quieter. Colder. The kind I never expected. I smiled politely and moved toward Zara, who hugged me quickly before being pulled away by other guests. Marcus and I found seats in the back. Throughout the ceremony, I felt their stares. But I sat straight, present, unashamed. My heart blessed Marcus for holding me through the times. The whispers started during dinner. I overheard snippets from nearby tables. That's Amara, the one who married outside. I heard she started a business. Sterling and Sons is struggling, but she's doing well. My Uncle Joseph approached our table, drink in hand. Heard you've been busy, he said, not unkindly. I nodded. Marrow's grown quite a bit. He chuckled. Your father won't admit it, but he's been following your press. Saw you on Channel 7 last month. My throat tightened. He has. Joseph shrugged. Pride's a funny thing. Makes people do stupid stuff. He walked away before I could respond. Marcus squeezed my hand under the table. Later, I visited the restroom and found my mother washing her hands. We made eye contact in the mirror. She opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, You look well. It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement. Thank you, I said softly. She dried her hands and left without another word. I stared at my reflection, barely recognizing the strong woman looking back. Those words of her gave me the glimpse of what was going on in her mind. 2 months after the wedding, everything shifted. A massive food corporation, Grandview Foods, reached out about acquiring Marrow. Their offer was substantial, 7 figures with me staying on as creative director. I should have been thrilled. Instead, my lawyer's next words made my blood run cold. You should know your father's company, Sterling and Sons, was also approached. They're competing for the same partnership deal. I sat back in my chair, processing. The universe had just handed me the most poetic script imaginable. My father's struggling import business versus my thriving company. Both fighting for the same corporate buyer. The irony almost made me laugh. Almost. What happens next? I asked. The lawyer smiled. We make sure your proposal is bulletproof. If you want this, we'll get it. I thought about my father's words from the news interview. Family legacy is everything. I want it, I said firmly. But I want to win clean. No sabotage. Just better work. The lawyer nodded approvingly. That's how you build something that lasts. The story broke in the local business journal on a Friday morning. Local food company Marrow competes against legacy importer Sterling and Sons for major partnership. The article featured side-by-side photos. My company's modern logo next to my father's traditional crest. Reporters detailed how both businesses were vying for Grandview's attention. Comments flooded social media. People who knew our family put the pieces together quickly. Wait, isn't that his daughter? Family drama meets business competition. This is better than reality TV. My phone exploded with messages. Friends, former classmates, even distant relatives reached out. The kind I had never received in years. I ignored most of them. Only one message mattered, and it came that evening. My mother's name appeared on my screen. After 3 years of silence, she was calling. My finger hovered over the answer button. Marcus stood nearby, watching. Your choice, he said. I answered. Hello. Silence. Then her voice strained. You've made your point, Amara. I closed my eyes, willing myself to stay calm. This isn't about you anymore, Mother. It's about my company. Your father is, I have to go, I interrupted. I hung up, hands shaking. Marcus wrapped me in his arms. You did it, he whispered. They finally noticed. The moment has come, he said softly. The competition process took 3 months. Both Sterling and Sons and Marrow submitted proposals, underwent evaluations, and presented to Grandview's board. I poured everything into our pitch. Marcus and I rehearsed until 2 in the morning. I highlighted our growth trajectory, our community partnerships, our innovative products. When presentation day arrived, I walked into that boardroom like I owned it. My father presented first. I sat in the waiting area, imagining his words. Tradition, legacy, decades of experience. His usual anthem. When my turn came, I focused on the future. Sustainability, diversity, innovation. The board members asked tough questions. I answered every single one without hesitation. Walking out, I felt good. Not cocky, just confident in what we'd built. 2 weeks later, the call came. Ms. Wilson, Grandview would like to move forward with Marrow. I asked the representative to repeat it. You won the partnership. Your father's company came in second. I thanked her professionally, hung up, and screamed. Marcus rushed in from the next room. We got it. I nodded, tears streaming. We got it. We held each other, laughing and crying. Everything we'd sacrificed had led to this moment. The feelings were mutual. Strange and beautiful. News of our victory spread quickly. The Business Journal ran another story. Marrow secures major partnership, outpacing established competitor. My father's company made no public comment. But rumors swirled. Sterling and Sons was facing serious problems. Suppliers were pulling contracts. Employees were leaving. Whispers of ethical complaints surfaced. Part of me felt vindicated. Another part felt something unexpected. Pity. This was the business my father had built over 30 years. His entire identity wrapped up in those walls. Watching it crumble should have felt like justice. Instead, it felt complicated. Marcus noticed my mood shifting. You okay? He asked one evening. I shrugged. I thought winning would feel different. You thought it would hurt less, he guessed. I nodded. I thought I'd feel nothing. But I just feel sad. For what could have been. Marcus pulled me close. His usual way of calming my emotions. That's because you're not like them. You still have a heart. I knew he was right. But it didn't make the ache disappear. 2 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Something told me to pick up. Hello. Silence. Then my father's voice, barely above a whisper. Amara. We need to talk. Unbelievable. He showed up at my office on a Thursday afternoon. I watched through the window as he parked, sat in his car for several minutes, then finally emerged. He'd aged dramatically. His shoulders curved inward. His hair had gone completely gray. When my assistant announced his arrival, my heart raced. I hadn't seen him face to face since before my wedding. For years looked like 40 years. Marcus stood nearby, protective as always. Want me to stay? He asked. I shook my head. I need to do this alone. My father entered slowly, taking in the modern office space. Photos of our team covered one wall. Product displays filled another. He studied everything before finally meeting my eyes. You've done well, he said quietly. I gestured to a chair. Why are you here? He sat, hands clasped. Sterling and Sons is failing. The Grandview deal was our last chance. I waited, saying nothing. I need help, Amara. Your help. The words hung between us. For years ago, he'd told me I was dead to him. Now he sat in my office, begging. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to cry. Instead, I kept my voice level. What kind of help? I asked him. The proposal was simple. Marrow would acquire Sterling and Sons. We'd absorb their operations, retain key employees, and rebrand under our company. My father would step down. His legacy business would become part of mine. You'd own everything, he said, the words clearly painful. I looked at this man who'd shaped my entire childhood, who'd taught me to ride a bike and balance a checkbook, who'd also chosen pride over love. Why would I do this? I asked. He swallowed hard. Because you're better than I was. Better than I am. Silence filled the room. I thought about revenge. How sweet it would be to let his company collapse. To watch him lose everything like he'd made me lose everything. But revenge suddenly felt hollow. Empty. I'll consider it, I said finally. But if I do this, it's on my terms. Complete acquisition. No interference. You retire. He nodded slowly. I understand. I stood, indicating the meeting was over. As he reached the door, he turned back. Amara? I met his gaze. I'm sorry. For everything. The apology came 4 years too late. But it came. I'll have my lawyer send the paperwork, I said. He left. I collapsed into my chair, shaking. My darling Marcus was on time to console me. The acquisition took 6 weeks to finalize. Lawyers negotiated terms. Accountants reviewed finances. Sterling & Sons was drowning in debt, worse than I'd imagined. But salvageable. The day we signed the merger documents, I sat across from my father in a conference room. The same wood-paneled room where he'd once held business meetings I'd overheard as a child. Now I owned the table. Owned the walls. Owned everything. He signed first, his hand trembling slightly. Then me. Clean, confident strokes. When I looked up, his eyes were wet. So it's done, he asked. It's done, I confirmed. Marrow now owns Sterling & Sons. He stared at the papers. 30 years. Gone, he said faintly. I felt the weight of that statement. It didn't have to be this way, I said quietly. He met my eyes. I know. The words felt significant. Not quite an apology, but close. An acknowledgement. We stood, awkward and uncertain. He extended his hand. I shook it, professional and distant. As he left, I watched him walk away, smaller somehow. Marcus appeared in the doorway. How do you feel? He asked. I thought about it. Free, I finally said. I feel free. The media coverage was immediate and intense. Business journalists loved the story. Daughter acquires father's company after years of estrangement. Reporters called nonstop. I agreed to one interview with a local magazine known for thoughtful pieces. The journalist, a woman named Claire, asked pointed questions. How does it feel to now own the company that essentially rejected you? I chose my words carefully. Complex. This isn't about revenge. It's about building something sustainable. But there must be some satisfaction, she pressed. I paused. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to let the past control your future. The quote went viral. Strangers messaged me on social media, sharing their own stories of family rejection. You gave me courage to leave my toxic situation. Thank you for showing that success is the best response. The attention felt overwhelming but purposeful. If my pain could help someone else find strength, maybe it meant something. Claire's final question stayed with me. Would you do it all again? I smiled. Every difficult moment led me here. So yes. The article published 2 weeks later. My mother called again. This time I answered. Amara? Her voice cracked. I read the interview. I waited, unsure where this was going. I'm proud of you, she whispered. For years of silence, and now she was proud. The words felt too little, too late. Too strange. Thank you, I said, keeping my tone neutral. I miss you, sweetheart. I miss my daughter. Tears threatened, but I pushed them back. I'd cried enough over this. I miss you too, Mom. But missing someone doesn't mean forgetting what they did. She made a small sound, maybe a sob. Can we talk? Really talk? I thought about it. About the years of hurt. The letter on the porch. The silence during my miscarriage. Maybe someday, I said honestly. But I'm not ready yet. I understand, she replied softly. Will you call me when you are? I don't know, I admitted. But I wish you peace, Mom. I really do. We said goodbye gently. I hung up and sat in silence. Marcus found me 20 minutes later, staring out the window. That sounded hard, he said. I nodded. She said she's proud of me. How does that feel? I thought about it. Bittersweet. Like winning a prize you stopped wanting. He kissed my forehead. You're allowed to feel whatever you feel. I leaned into him. I think I feel okay. While cleaning the office storage room, I found an old box I'd moved 3 times without opening. Inside, beneath random papers, lay the disownment letter. For years old. Creased from the day I'd crumpled it in my fist. I unfolded it carefully, reading those words again. You are no longer our daughter. They still stung, but differently now. Less like a fresh wound, and more like an old scar. I carried the letter to my desk, and fed it through the paper shredder. The machine hummed, cutting those painful words into strips. Confetti of the past. Marcus walked in as the last piece disappeared. Was that what I think it was? I nodded. I don't need to carry it anymore. He smiled. Good. I swept the shredded pieces into the trash bin. Something lifted from my shoulders. Not forgiveness exactly. Maybe acceptance. Acceptance that some people can't love beyond their limitations. That their failure didn't define my worth. That night, I slept better than I had in years. No nightmares about family dinners where I didn't exist. No dreams of letters and locked doors. Just peace. Finally, peace. It was a real peace. Like I had never felt in years. Under my leadership, the restructured company thrived. We renamed Sterling and Sons as Marrow Global, honoring both the old and new. I kept 20 of my father's longtime employees, people who'd been loyal through everything. They seemed relieved to have stable leadership again. We implemented fair wages, clear ethics policies, and community partnerships. Within 8 months, the division became profitable. Former Sterling employees thanked me personally. "You saved our jobs," one older gentleman said, tears in his eyes. "Your father would have let it all burn rather than admit defeat." I didn't know what to say to that. I just nodded. Marcus handled operations brilliantly, his construction background giving him practical insight others lacked. We made a good team. The business team I'd always deserved. During a company meeting, I announced a new initiative, scholarship programs for children of immigrants. "Building bridges, not walls," I told our staff. The room erupted in applause. Later, I got an email from my father. Subject line, "Thank you." I stared at it for several minutes before opening it. Inside, just 3 sentences. "You're doing better than I ever did. I see that now. I'm sorry I didn't see you sooner." I closed the email without responding. Maybe someday I'd reply. But not yet. Not now. The following spring, Zara organized another family gathering. A simple barbecue at her house. She called to invite me personally. "I know things are complicated," she said. "But you're still family, Amara. You should be there." I debated declining. These people had abandoned me. Erased me. But Marcus encouraged me to go. "You've proven everything you needed to prove. Now you get to choose who you want to be." We arrived late, after the crowd had settled. Familiar faces turned as we walked into the backyard. But this time, the atmosphere felt different. Warmer. My father stood near the grill with my uncle. When he saw me, he set down his tongs and walked over. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then he spoke, voice rough with emotion. "You did what I couldn't, Amara. You built something real." I searched his face for sarcasm, manipulation. Found only genuine regret. "Thank you," I said quietly. My mother approached cautiously, her eyes red. "Can I hug you?" she asked. I hesitated, then nodded. She wrapped her arms around me, whispering apologies into my shoulder. I didn't cry, but I didn't pull away either. We sat together for the first time in 5 years, awkward but present. Years later, when my daughter Imani asked about her grandparents, I chose my words carefully. We sat in the garden behind our house, her small hand in mine. "Grandma and Grandpa made mistakes," I said. "Big ones. They hurt me very badly." "Why?" she asked, innocent as she was. "Because they loved their traditions more than they loved flexibility. More than they loved me, their daughter, for a while." I squeezed her hand. "But people can change, baby." "Not always, though. But sometimes." "Do you love them?" she asked curiously. I thought about it honestly. "I'm learning to again." Slowly. Imani nodded, processing. "And Daddy?" "Daddy's family loved us even when mine couldn't. That's why family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up when you needed one." She smiled and returned to her toys. I looked up at Marrow Global's headquarters visible from our backyard. The building gleamed in the afternoon sun, a monument to survival and reinvention. My parents visited occasionally now. Careful. Respectful. We'd never recover what was lost. But we'd built something new. Something honest. I glanced at the letter I'd written to myself 5 years ago, preserved in a frame on my desk. They disowned me for love. I rebuilt it with it. It still felt true. It will always hold true.